What's up, y'all? Lawrence, just geeking out. Make sure you like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. And I am here to talk about Superman and Lois. That final episode, man. Really like season 4, but that final episode specifically. The video I made right before this one, where I basically say that Tyler Hoechlin is the best live action Superman we've ever had. I should have waited for this episode to come out, because this episode made it so if anyone had any question, if anyone had any doubt, this episode should have squashed it. If you're a Superman fan, not a Cavill fan or a Christopher Reeve fan or a George Reeves fan. I'm talking about that guy, that freaking comic book. If you're a fan of that comic book, if you're a fan of this guy, not this guy, or even this guy, Christopher Reeve, mecha figure. But if you're a fan of the character that's been written in these comic books, the heart and soul of the character, I don't see how you can watch the finale of Superman and Lois and not walk out going, yo, Tyler Hoechlin nonchalantly became the best Superman of all time, which is amazing to me. Because I didn't really watch Teen Wolf like that, but I would check in on it because I'm a big fan of the movie in the 80s, and I know the show is completely different, but it was enough for me to want to check in, and I would see him on there, thought he was good. Now I saw he was cast as Superman, so that was interesting because it's always weird when you have a live action Superman already. Kind of saw that with Brandon Routh and Tom Welling. So we already had Henry Cavill cast as Superman. So for him to come in, it kind of felt like the TV Superman. And not just the TV Superman, but the TV Superman that's just kind of guest starring on Supergirl's show. So there was just like a lack of investment from a lot of fans. I was excited just to see Superman on TV. Didn't love the costume. And literally, for me, the second he stepped on screen, I was like, this guy's good. This guy's really good. But the role on Supergirl was never meant to be a flagship type of character. If anything, he was there to kind of pass the torch to her, which was fine. So when Superman and Lois comes out, and pretty much in tone, in feel, in execution, and in the narrative explaining this is a different universe. This is not the same guy from Supergirl. I mean, it is a game changer. He went from just like this really cool guest star Superman to the definitive Superman. So I'm just giving the man his roses, as well as the writers and directors and cinematographers, cast and crew, Lois Lane, all the characters, and all the actors, their flowers, because the show is amazing. And this season, guys, shows don't, making television is really hard. I do work in television, and making television is really hard. And to execute an idea, it takes a lot of time, a lot of great, talented people. And when you get a show like this, and you learn their budget is cut in half, like their budget is cut down so much, every series regular, except for Superman, Lois, and their children, maybe Lex Luthor this season, the rest of the cast are just put on recurring. which means they don't have a guaranteed amount of episodes produced, or maybe they have like 3 or 4 episodes, whereas before they would have a season of, I forgot how long their seasons were, but let's just say for fun they have a season of 20 episodes. The actor might have like a guarantee of 18 out of 20 or 20 out of 20. So for some of these characters to not even show up as often, to have the budget cut so down that we're not able to get a whole lot of Superman, even though it didn't feel like it. Like it feels like this show should not have done as well in the last season. But the opposite happened. It was like when you have a show that focuses on the humanity and the intimacy and the connection between characters, that's when you know you got a great show, especially a great superhero show, because they built these characters so specifically with so much care that you can take the superpowers out of an episode or two and you don't even miss it. You can literally take Clark out of the Superman costume for an episode or two and you barely notice it because you are more into the relationships and the characters. When you see Clark trying to appeal to Lex Luthor's humanity, that's beyond like fighting in space, which we got, which was dope. So they really operated on all cylinders and did something that I think is kind of impossible. Prematurely end your series with less money and less cast, and make it so the audience doesn't notice there's a deficit somewhere. And I didn't. I did a little bit, only because I wanted more. So let's get into this episode. So it pretty much opens up with the Doomsday and Superman fighting in Smallville. And the first half of this episode is it's all the action. It's action-packed, man. And that's where I kind of felt the deficit, because this episode wonderfully put together a lot of information. But I feel like, man, if they were able to probably do what they wanted to do, this would have been a 2-parter, maybe a 3-parter, but you're handcuffed. They had to do what they had to do in a short amount of time. They executed it perfectly. But that fight with Doomsday and then to Lex Luthor, I felt like that could have been a 2-part episode. Easily. But anyway, so you have Doomsday and Superman fighting. Well, first we got Superman trying to train up his sons. And we're dealing with the idea of mortality, man. The show deals with mortality in a very interesting way. The series kind of opened up with Martha Kent dying. Spoilers, just in case. I'm spoiling the crap out of this. And then we deal with Clark meeting the other Kryptonians and his brother and not being alone, and there's more to me and more to my life. And then we deal with, Bizarro and a version of Superman who ultimately kind of dies, and then Superman dies, and then we deal with Lois battling cancer, and Superman can't punch cancer in the face. It's like we're dealing with these characters, the fragility of our human experience is on showcase in this series, and it becomes a really big part of the series, bigger than I imagined it would be. This season alone, Superman died, but Sam Lane died. Lois's father died, which is intense, and that's where I felt we needed more episodes just to deal with the grief. The actors killed it. The writing was fantastic. It's just one of those where it'd be nice to have more episodes. They weren't able to, But those were one of those moments where I was like, I like to see more of the grief in a world without Superman in the beginning. But, you know, nothing against them. Like I said, oops, they didn't have the time. They had to tell a tight story. So John Henry infiltrate, you know, his suit, and is taken over by Lex Luthor, which is really cool. They kind of gave Lex his exosuit, I guess. And you have this wonderful fight between Superman and Doomsday has now like died again. Every time he dies, he gets stronger and more vicious. And Lois was able to appeal to him before because that's actually a Superman, right? From a different universe who turned into Bizarro, but that Superman still had his Lois Lane. He had his sons, and the big difference in that universe was, I guess, that Superman had no use for Clark Kent. There wasn't an alter ego and the power, and he's not the best father because he's Superman all the time and a celebrity and all that stuff, but he still loved his wife, loved his children. So when the monsters saw Lois, the monsters saw his Lois. But now that he's died and became even crazier, Lois tries to appeal to him, and he's ready to kill her and her sons. And Clark has no choice but to fight this thing with a heart that's diminishing his powers, a heart that could fail on him, and his sons aren't ready. And he's ready to take this thing on by himself, and he is getting destroyed. It's not one of those things where out of nowhere Superman's just going to save the day. No. He couldn't beat this thing when he was fully powered. He was getting his butt whooped, and it was dope. And his sons tried to come and help, and they did, but this monster made light work of freaking John. I felt like he killed John, and Jordan had to like superhero CPR him back to life. And this is where I felt like we could have used a lot more time with John Henry Irons kind of finding the device and able to get to the main street in time, and then pretty much throws the hammer at him, and that's it. And it was more than that. Superman lured him to it, and he learned that he needed to work as a team in this moment. He couldn't just take this monster out by himself, which was amazing. It just kind of happened really quick. But in it happening quick, chef's kiss. Because they're like, I got to get Doomsday to the sun, because when the sun gives me strength, it will hurt him and kill him. He's my opposite. So although you get this kind of quick fight that to me could have felt anticlimactic because it's Superman and Doomsday round 2. Round 1 was crazy. We get a moment where the show tells us what it is. It's not about fighting and superpowers. It's about that human connection. And as Clark is flying Doomsday to the sun, Doomsday wakes up. And as an audience member, you go like, holy crap. Like if this dude wakes up before he gets disintegrated, you're done. Like there's nothing you can do. John Henry had that one weapon. Your son's got their butt whooped. You're weakening. You're going to get your butt whooped. And the monster wakes up. And I love the design of this Doomsday because it has human eyes. It has Clark's eyes. And the monster waking up remembers his life as Superman, remembers his Lois, remembers his sons. And Clark is ready to punch him. And Doomsday's just like, and accepts his fate, which is freaking sad. Because the Superman of that world was complicated, but he was still a hero. And this is how he goes out. Sad. Dealing with mortality. And the Superman fights Lex Luthor, which is freaking dope. He punches him out of his suit, which was sick. And not the third shade on Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, but it's so different. Lex Luthor came at his family, specifically targeted Lois Lane, tried to destroy her reputation and end her life. And Clark punches him out of his suit and, of course, catches him and saves him, brings him down. Where in Batman v Superman, Clark was like, I'll bring you in without breaking you. And that's more than you deserve. Just so threatening. This Superman just has a lot of compassion and empathy. And he saves Lex. Of course he is. He's Superman. And that's kind of it. Lex goes to freaking jail, thinking he's going to run the place, and figures out that Mannheim is there. And that's kind of the end of the Superman part of this story. And then we get to this long and wonderful epilogue. It's very emotional. Because he and the writers are great. Because we're going to deal with the death of these characters. And it could have been very jarring. But he starts his narration saying, so I lived for 32 more years. So automatically you know, okay, let's buckle up here. We know where this is going. And we get to see Lois and Clark live their lives. Not just use superpowers or her ability as a journalist, but like they saw how else they could help in the world. With charities and building foundations and traveling. And Clark using Superman not just as a physical presence, but also, doubling down on that hope. And they did it. And then you see John and Jordan grow up. And let me tell you something. John and Jordan got busy because they had a lot of grandchildren. A lot of grandchildren. Oh, I'm sorry. Before that, John Henry and Lana Lang get married. I forgot his name. Lana's ex-husband and his wife. They're expecting their second child, and life is moving on, and it's moving on beautifully for these people who deserve it. And okay, so now Jordan and John are grown, and all these grandkids, and you get to see Clark grow old with Lois. Something he would not have been able to do if he didn't have that heart in him. But he grows older, and I'm sure his powers are diminishing. And this is the first gut punch, man. The first gut punch. This thing is emotional. Lois Lane, the cancer comes back. You do the math. Lois and Clark in this series, they're probably about 42, 43, 32 more years. So she died in her early 70s. No, he died in probably his early 70s, mid 70s. So she probably died in her late 60s at the earliest. And they're all around her as she's in that bed. And Clark says something really, in the narration, he says something really powerful where he was like, when he first died at the hands of Doomsday, it was just black until he woke up. But as Lois dies, he sees her look off and say, Dad, which you see it in Clark's eyes. It gives him hope that, there is more after this. Because I guess when he died at Doomsday's hand, it wasn't his time. I'm just adding a narrative. And then you get Clark just in grief and alone. Decides to get a dog, name it Crypto. And it's beautiful and sad. And Tyler Hoechlin, he's such an amazing actor. And yeah, the material is great. And if Cavill played in this series, would he be just as good? I don't know. Yes, no, maybe, probably different. But still, Tyler Hoechlin is such an amazing actor. Because with a look, you get his loneliness and the fact that his heart is full. right? When he was a kid and a teenager, he was so lonely. He had his parents, but he was so disconnected from the world. And now he's kind of back to being alone. But since he did have love and did have a life with Lois, he's lonely but fulfilled. You see him in that bed sleeping with that dog. Me and Crypto take naps. Like, he's sleeping. He's at peace. Going for walks. He has his ring on the whole time. And then, oh man, he gets a heart attack. Exactly where his father did. He didn't die in that spot. They were able to keep him alive, and he's in the bed where Lois died, and probably not the same bed, but the same bedroom his mother died. It's funny. The heart attack made him drop to where his father died, but he ended up dying in the bedroom where his mother died, which is very interesting. And with his sons around him, and we see Superman die. And he gets up out of his body, and it's just this beautiful thing. It's how we imagine, like, man, if that's the way we go, man. Because he sees his sons as teenagers and says, we have a life of joy, and sees his grandkids and says something like family, and sees Alana and John Henry, and, I forget all the terms he gave them, but the one that hit me the most says he's seeing all these important people in his life of Smallville specifically. He looks and there's this man crying at the table, and he sits down next to him, and it's Lex Luthor. So he says, like, joy, love, family, friendship. And then he gets to Lex Luthor and he's like, forgiveness, and puts a hand on Lex. This is Superman, guys. This is Superman. Forgiveness is part of this hero's journey. Love, joy, friends, family, forgiveness. This is Superman. That's why this version of Superman embodies humanity and hope. Superman, the end of the Superman series, he's not even in the costume, and anyone who watched this is glued to it. Clark, they figured it out. Jeez Louise, they figured out how to make some dope, consistent Superman content where Clark is as interesting as Superman. Anyway, his sons, they open the door. I can't remember if his sons or he does. He opens the door and there's Lois. He's like, oh, she is so beautiful. And he steps out into this light. She's wearing that red dress. I believe it's a red dress from a previous episode of a flashback. I can't remember. No, it's the red dress she wore to feel beautiful after the cancer in season 3. I don't know. Let me know in the comments. But anyway, he sees her. He gives her a kiss. And it kind of, the screen illuminates white and Superman and Lois. And this show, for the first time ever in all media, except for the All-Star Superman cartoon, we get a finale to Superman. The end of his story. And it's sad and beautiful. Sad because, 72, 73 isn't old, man. And you would think that, you would hope that people like Superman and Lois would live to like 99, 100 years old, like a long life. They deserve it. But they don't. But their life is so full, they've lived lifetimes within their 70-something years on this earth. And it's beautiful that they were able to do that and have grandkids and family and, of course, pretty much healed the world. Yeah, it hits in a very interesting way. And I know I'm sounding like I'm just, romanticize. I mean, because it's not a perfect show. There were episodes and some seasons where, but overall, it was great. And with a finale to Superman, and I'll say this, one of the best finales to a TV show ever made. One of the best. Top 5, top 10. And I love it because so many TV series feel like in the end, they have to give you this twist. Or in the end, he's not really dead, and kind of show you a teaser to something you're never going to see. Or don't end it, Sopranos. You just don't know what happens. We'll leave it up to your imagination. And all that stuff is fun. But every now and then, I want you to give me exactly what I'm expecting and just stick the landing. Give me what some would call boring. How are you going to end your Superman series? Well, I don't know. I think his wife will pass away from cancer, and then he'll kind of walk around with his dog for a while until he gets a heart attack. You can imagine a room full of executives are going, absolutely not. If he's going to go, he needs to go he's not even wearing the suit. It's like, nah, man. They focused on the man and allowed us to experience what we all are going to experience and go through. Superman and Lois didn't pass away from an alien invasion or she's on this story. No, it was cancer and a heart attack. It's so human and so relatable. It can't help but tug on your heartstrings, and that's the point of the show. So it's a beautiful show with the beautiful actors, and I'm going to miss it. And it's unfortunate that it was cut short. But perhaps it being cut short is why we got what we got. I know the writers said they were hoping for 7 seasons, and I would have loved that. I would love to see, Jordan and John develop their powers and what happens when they leave Smallville. There's so much that happened between the epilogue and the last episode. Like there's of course time jump, and there's so much we can imagine that happened in that time. This costume right here, I'll show it to you. We didn't get a chance to see this. Steel in his comic accurate suit, that would have been fire. In the end, when you had Superman flying and the 2 Superboys, their costume is CGI. They're not practical, and I imagine if there was more time and money, if it made sense, they would actually build practical suits for them to use. So yeah, but I think this kind of really gives me hope, man. And when I see David Corn sweat in his suit and hear James Gunn talk about Superman, this is what they're talking about. Now, the tone, of course, will probably be different than the series, with the heart of the character. The fact that, I know people were complaining, I'm not talking about the next Superman movie right now, real quick, before I stop, but people were complaining about the first image that was released by James Gunn, all right, and it's Superman sitting down, putting his boots on, because we kind of came out of this Henry Cavill Superman action figure, bigger than life, godlike image. And James Gunn gave us the most human image that we can all relate to, which is a man sitting down and putting on his work shoes because it's time to go to work. And we can decide how he feels and what he thinks. Well, that's something we do every single day. And James Gunn gave us an image of Superman doing something that we do every single day. He is literally telling us this is about the man. This is a story about Clark. And after watching Superman and Lois, it's like, that's what I want. Be bold enough for your first image to be a man putting on his shoes. The In the next image, a man sitting next to his dog, looking at the earth. Just human pieces of the story that is telling us he is focusing on the man, the human spirit. And that is what Superman and Lois did. So I am very excited for what's to come. And I'm not knocking Cavill or Man of Steel. I like Man of Steel. But Zack Snyder specifically saw Superman as a god, separate from humanity, and visually created this, he's freaking ripped, and then the costume accentuates every muscular detail. He looks like a walking action figure. Very intimidating, very imposing. And James Gunn is like doing the opposite. No, he's wearing a suit. You can tell he's a big muscular guy, but you don't see all the rippling muscles, and it's a little baggy. You know what that is? It makes the man approachable. It makes when he flies out the sky and lands, you're not scared of him. He doesn't look like he can rip you to shreds. Of course he can. But there's something extremely approachable about a guy who looks like a regular guy. Quotation mark, right? He's not. He's like 6'5", freaking handsome. But still, he looks like a human being. Where Cavill Superman was supposed to look like a god. So, not knocking the interpretation, but I am into this idea that I am watching a man named Clark try to make the world a better place. I'm loving it. Anyway, for me, Superman and Lois is a 10 out of 10, but if I'm going to give it a fair rating, and not just be biased because I love it so much, like objective, I mean, it's a 9 out of 10, man. It's like This Is Us with Superman dropped in the middle. It's so good. All of you watching this, I made this just to share it. I don't think enough people watched this series. I don't know if enough people knew about this series. I love Arrow and the Arrowverse and CW, but those shows were much, they were more campy, more comic. No, I don't want to say comic booky because that's a general statement, but they're more campy. They're more action figures come to life. Where Superman and Lois is much more grounded, much more HBO Max. And I think people who are kind of over the CW thing group Superman and Lois in that. And they should. The actors came from there. But I just wish more people have a chance to see Superman and Lois. So tell everybody you know. And real quick, I've been talking for 33 minutes so far. This is crazy. But farewell to the Arrowverse. And although this show isn't technically part of the Arrowverse, it's still part of what Smallville started on the WB/the CW. It started with Superman and it ended with Superman. So a big salute to all the crew, all the cast, from Smallville all the way to Superman and Lois, Greg Berlanti, Grant Gustin, Stephen Amell, Tom Welling, Michael Rosenbaum, Melissa Benoist, Brandon Routh. The list goes on and on and on. Thank you guys, man. Thank you for the road. Thank you for the freaking road. Thank you for the journey. Superman and Lois, thank you for staying true to the heart of who Superman and Lois are. Thank you for staying true to who they are in their spirit, and thank you for doing that, but still telling stories with these characters that we've never seen before. Because none of the stories were like lifted straight up from the comic books. They were deeply interpreted. And it was amazing to watch fresh, brand new stories with characters you know. Thank you for taking care of them. Man, let me know your feelings on the show. I can talk for another 30 minutes. I won't start to bore you. But anyway, what a chef's kiss of a show. Superman and Lois. If you haven't watched it and you decide to watch this entire review, well, thank you very much. But now go back and watch it. Tell a friend. Anyway, that's all I got. Like, subscribe, comment, hit that notification bell. I'll be back. Same super time, same super channel. Peace.